So, as very few of you know, but some do, I bought an E39 M5 down here. Well, actually, I bought it in Dallas, Texas, about a month and a half ago through a friend. I finally had time to come down and pick it up, I think 2 days ago. And now we're down in Austin to visit Circuit of the Americas for a vintage race. But, just as we arrived in Austin, we found a nice crack in the radiator that was starting to hemorrhage coolant everywhere. So last night, I took one of those Lime scooters to Harbor Freight, got epoxy, a bunch of tools, and I had Blunttech up near my home overnight me and Nissan's radiator. But we still have to go to the track, so I'm gonna cake that friggin' thing in epoxy, and we're gonna fill it with bottled water, which is all I have down here, and it's not freezing, so we're gonna give that a go, and hopefully it lasts until tomorrow when I get the new radiator, and then we have about 1,300 miles home, so fingers crossed, but yeah. Well, it's not pretty, but that should work, at least until we get the radiator in it tomorrow. Now we're gonna go get some coffee, let it cure up, and go to Circuit of the Americas. Well, the radiator fix appears to be working, and we just pulled into Circuit of the Americas. All right. Never been here before. It's a little bit of a different lead up than Laguna Seca was. Very rural. Very Texas. Well, we made it to Coda. Just ignore Corey. There we go. That's better. Well, it's a new day. I didn't let the epoxy cure long enough yesterday, so it's totally hooped, as you can tell by how much green is in there. So the new radiator, you gotta plug Blunttech. If you guys don't use them for your parts, you probably should. They FedEx overnight prioritied me a new Nissan's radiator for this thing. Wasn't cheap, but hey, I've got it. And then I bought one of those bird scooter things, kind of like that. I bought one of those on Amazon same day, so I rode it to Harbor Freight twice and Starbucks once. I got the tools that I thought I needed for the job, so screwdrivers, a little metric socket set, zip ties, hose clamps, picks, and a wire cutter. These are for the those little two-piece push clips, but the Nissan's radiators come with new O-rings and stuff like that, so these are the way to go. It's an OE radiator. And then I do have fan tools on order, but they're not here yet, so picked up just some generic wrenches to hopefully get the fan clutch off too. So first things first is going to be, I think, pulling the shroud and the reservoir. So it's going to be, I can take the wire cutter, get it right in there, pull that off, pull this off, and then there's another one right here and another one right here. Once I've got that loose, I should be able to get under here. There's a little nipple for the overflow that goes to the tank. So I got to take that off just to avoid breaking these, because they're not that strong, and I really don't want to have to try to find a new M5 fluid reservoir. That taken off, I've got the main capillary hose taken care of. This little hard hose, actually trying to figure out where that goes. I think that's just the drainage hose, maybe? So I think next step for me is there is a hose clamp right down in there. I'm gonna have to get a screwdriver down in there and pull that off. And I should be able to take the entire reservoir and shroud off. I did get the fan clutch off with my standard tools, thank goodness. And then there is that little temperature sender box right down here too with an electrical plug. I'll have to carefully pull that off as well. And after that, should be a little smoother sailing. So, shroud's out. Just the electrical connector here and there. And then this hose comes right off. I found it was a little bit easier to just pull the MAF and right sonotube out. Next step is going to be pulling the rad hoses. Get a set of picks. These things are like $1.99. Just that, and then push it off. It's a little tough to actually pry them off the radiator, but it's well worth having the right tools for it, even if you're 1,300 miles from home. Once you've done that, it's just 2 8mm it looks like, and we'll be able to lift the radiator all the way off. And then I'll show you guys how to change out the O-rings in the radiator hoses as well. which I highly recommend doing if you don't plan on changing the hoses themselves. I probably should have. These look like they're original, but again, I am not close to home, so I'm not going to bother. So here is the radiator with my failed heckin' patch. It actually looks surprisingly clean, but I'm looking for a date on it. I'm guessing it's original. Yep. February 1st, 2000. So, we've got the new boy. What I'm gonna grab first is these. And there's a pair of bigger O-rings here. Those are for the radiator hoses. So, first order of business is gonna be taking your pick and pulling the old O-ring out of this fitting. And I'll show you what that looks like. So the O-ring on the right is the one I just pulled out. It's pretty flattened. It's kind of hard to tell that. The one on the left is new. And how you get that thing back in there, a little step ledge where you see that fluid, just push it in by hand, don't use any tools. And that's really all there is to it. Gorgeous new radiator installed. Got the two new O-ring fittings pressed back on. I got the rubber feet transferred over. So really the next steps are get these support brackets back in with the rubber pieces. Just like that, both sides. Then get the shroud back on with the coolant jug. Get this tightened back down with the hose clamp, which I've got sitting on it. Then, of course, make sure your two little electrical connectors are plugged back in, otherwise you're gonna have a bunch of warning lights. And then shroud, tube, fan clutch, and then we'll fill her up and make sure everything's good. I've done weirder in a parking lot, but it's been a long time. So I had to cut the one-time use clamp off of this. I got my Harbor Freight assortment clamp. I'm just gonna get that set on out of the way, probably facing like that. We'll get the shroud back on. I got everything electrically connected. Then I'm gonna feed the hose back on, tighten that down with the factory clamp, and then get all those plastic clips put back on, and then we'll fill it up. 50, hopefully it doesn't need more, but I'm gonna fill that up with tap water before I leave, just in case it needs more. I guess the next step now is try it. I don't know, but home of the, 25-minute radiator in a parking lot? All right.